Platformers raised back in the day were usually meant to test the reflexes of players in a way that made it a daunting task to play any game in that genre from beginning to end. A young game designer realized this and sought to design a game that would be easy to play and accessible to a child. That young designer is Masahiro Sakurai. At the age of 19, with assistance from Nintendo of Japan and Nintendo of America, Sakurai both made a character that he thought everyone would love and a game that was easy for gamers. Originally marketed as Twinkle Popo, this game would later be renamed Hoshi no Kirby, Kirby of the Stars, aka Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy in 1992 in all territories. However, for some, Kirby's Dream Land was too easy. So in response, Sakurai gave Kirby the ability to inhale and copy the abilities of certain enemies in Kirby's second game, Kirby's Adventure for the Nintendo in 1993. It was Sakurai's way of retaining his vision of an easy platformer while giving more experienced players what he described as something fun to do. Kirby's Adventure also introduced to the series mini-games that could either be played outside of the main game or during the main game in between stages. Kirby's Adventure would go on to become one of the most popular Nintendo titles, as well as one that pushed the Nintendo hardware to its limit during the system's final years. With titles like the accessible Kirby's Dream Land and the hardware-pushing Kirby's Adventure, Kirby was quickly establishing himself as a character icon of Nintendo alongside the likes of Mario, Link, and Samus. For both Kirby and its creator Masahiro Sakurai, this would only be the beginning of what they had in store for gaming. After the success of Kirby's Dream Land and Kirby's Adventure, Kirby would inspire a number of spin-offs. Kirby's Pinball Land for the Game Boy, Kirby's Dream Course for the Super Nintendo, and Kirby's Avalanche for the Super Nintendo. The next main entry Kirby title would be the 1995 Kirby's Dream Land 2 for the Game Boy. But in 1996, a unique Kirby title would be introduced. It would be the third one directed by Masahiro Sakurai after the first Dream Land and Adventure. While the previous Kirby titles released after Adventure were handled by HAL Laboratory, Sakurai was not directly involved with their production. With Kirby Super Star, Sakurai had three primary ideas for the game. The first was co-op multiplayer. Sakurai already envisioned Kirby Super Star having a co-op multiplayer feature due to the number of different characters to be featured in the game. It was an idea shared by Nintendo general manager and game designer Shigeru Miyamoto, who wanted to see Nintendo platformers feature co-op multiplayer. He wanted to introduce this in the Mario series, but felt that Mario was too fast-paced at the time, and that Kirby Super Star could be played at the perfect pace for co-op gameplay. The second primary idea was actions similar to those in fighting games. This was to help support the co-op feature, keeping it from being stale for one person watching while the other obliterated enemies with the same move over and over. So the idea was to add multiple different moves to each of Kirby's copy abilities. The third primary idea was presenting Kirby Super Star in an omnibus format, presenting several smaller stories and minigames in one. The omnibus format would help Nintendo easily market Kirby Super Star as having 8 games in one. There was one game that Sakurai had planned but wasn't able to include in the final product, Kagero Mansion, a horror-themed Kirby game where Kirby navigates a haunted mansion while his mouth gets sealed by a curse. In Japan, the game was packaged to look like a Pawania box. A Pawania box is made from wood and typically used, according to Sakurai, to seal luxury items. This idea came from game designer and director of the Mother series, Shigesato Itoi, who thought the Pawania box packaging would help make Kirby Super Star stand out and look extra special. What seemed like the biggest addition to the Kirby franchise would end up becoming a trendsetter for future Kirby titles, as well as the way Sakurai would present video games outside of the Kirby series.
Wanted. Crash test dummy. Any volunteers? You are ready!
They get a hold of this game, then all of a sudden, everybody's Kid Griffey Jr. They get my vertical. They got my wheels. They even gave away my patented swing.
It's a whole new ball game. Ken Griffey Jr.'s winning run with ACM graphics, only on Super NES.
Here you go, Mr. Griffey. Sorry, kid. Car sold separately.
Street Fighter 02登場
正義は勝つなんてね。
Kirby Super Star became more than just what a main entry Kirby game could do on the Super Nintendo. It became a benchmark for future Kirby titles, as well as future Masahiro Sakurai titles. The omnibus-style presentation became a standard for Sakurai in the Super Smash Bros. Series. You can also see the omnibus format in the last Kirby game directed by Sakurai, Kirby Air Raid for the GameCube, as well as Kid Icarus Uprising for the Nintendo 3DS. You can also hear Kirby Super Star's influence in the All-Star mode's rest areas in Melee and Brawl, as it's the same music used in the Great Cave Offense's save room. Kirby Super Star was re-released on the Nintendo DS as Kirby Super Star Ultra. Ultra retained everything offered in the original Super Star release, while adding new game modes featuring new music, new enemies, harder versions of Super Star bosses, and the brand new boss, Galacta Knight. Galacta Knight would become a semi-recurring boss, usually appearing as the penultimate challenge before Kirby and his friends would encounter a much harder version of the game's final boss in future true arena modes. Kirby Super Star gave fans of the franchise multiple different ways to experience a Kirby platformer, not just with the presentation, but with gameplay innovations like real-time co-op. The ideas that Masahiro Sakurai introduced in Kirby Super Star can be felt in future Kirby titles, the Super Smash Bros. Titles, and Kid Icarus Uprising. Together, Sakurai and Kirby inspired the platformer genre and introduced experiences to gaming that helped bring more players to gaming.